you know, I've enjoyed the last 2 weeks. I've listened to your lessons for the last 2 weeks, and I'm not, well, enjoy may be the wrong word
No,
for
that's-
that, but
That's what you're supposed to do is enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm supposed to enjoy it.
Well, that does my heart good right
learn,
there.
I'm learning. I actually wrote down and made notes in the truck where I could go back and, did you say this is gonna be the last one of it? And I could
This-
list
this
all
is
3 of
it,
them in
yeah.
order altogether, so.
And I got scribbles all over it where I,
Yeah.
anyway.
Jesus was talking to his disciples in Matthew 24, and they asked him a real simple question, and he spent the rest of that chapter answering their question for them. And he didn't quite tell them what they expected to hear. One of the main, there's a couple of main points that I get out of the last part from verse 37 on. A couple of things that, one of them is, Jesus was saying, you guys ain't taking me serious. That was one of them, and I'll get to the other one here in just a minute. Imagine how Noah would have felt. Here he spends 120 years building a boat to save humanity from a flood that's coming. And I guess every day, Peter said he was a preacher, he would warn these folks that was around him what's coming. I mean, and he knew what was coming, and he was warning these people, and they didn't take him serious. They was laughing at him and mocking him and making fun of him and everything. Matthew 24 verse 37 says about us, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Well, we've changed an awful lot since Noah's time. People ain't the same, are they? They're exactly the same. People are the same. We've got more play pretties and more toys, and we've learned how to do some fancy stuff, but people are just exactly the same. They're exactly the same as they was in the Garden of Eden. Now, Jesus was not talking necessarily about the extreme wickedness, how sorry and trashy and low down them folks in Noah's time was. He's talking about that in Genesis 6 verse 5, but he was talking about how people, like people today, they're just too busy with everyday life. They're just too busy with it. He says that they was eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage. That's verse 38. And then just like a fly swatter, judgment fell. You ever get to chasing flies in your kitchen and you think right before you swat one, boy, if you knew what was coming, you know, and then whack, and it's over. And that fly ain't got a clue. But these people had plenty of warning. They didn't believe it, but in 2 Peter 2 verse 5, talks about Noah's preaching, where God spared, and I'll just read it to you, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. And they saw him building this ark. I mean, you know, just if he hadn't even preached to them, they saw him building the ark. And if they had asked him, why are you building the ark, he'd have told them, but they didn't. They didn't believe him. They didn't believe him. They was unconcerned. And they got swept away, mashed by God's fly swatter. Verse 38, Matthew 24:38, far as in the days that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. Was Jesus saying there's something wrong with eating and drinking and marrying and giving in marriage? No, there ain't nothing wrong with them things. A couple of 100 years before the flood, people was eating and drinking and marrying and so on and so forth, and there ain't nothing wrong with them things if they're not abused. It's okay to eat and drink in moderation and not to excess. And there ain't nothing wrong with marrying and giving in marriage the way God intended it to be. The problem was, that Jesus was trying to tell them, was they just didn't have time for God. They was completely giving themselves up to daily life and pursuing pleasure and fulfilling the lust of their flesh, and they didn't have any regard whatsoever for worshiping and glorifying God. They wasn't worried a bit about the welfare of their souls. They probably didn't even think they had one, and they didn't believe Noah when he told them that God was going to swat them. Now, it said like the days of Noah, that's going to be the same way when the Son of Man comes back. Jesus was actually talking about gluttony, drunkenness, unlawful marriages and fornication. Is there any of that going on today? Well, just like today, the people in Noah's time had become devoted to drunkenness and lust and all that stuff. And the word where it says they were eating and drinking, that word that got translated eating, means eating like a brute beast, a hog, indulging in gluttony and drunkenness. That's what that word actually meant. And then from the story, talking about them people back in Genesis 6, verse 2, they had changed God's institution of marriage into a license to fulfill perverted lusts, any of that going on, and engage in unclean fornication. Genesis 6, verse 2, that the sons, sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And they was just completely given over to all that stuff until the day of the flood. Matthew 24:38. I'll read it again. And knew not until the flood came and took them away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Now, just like that fly on the counter, the people back in Noah's day and the people today do not know how sudden and severe the coming destruction is going to be. People of these last days is going to be totally unprepared for it when Jesus comes back to judge the world. By the way, for the last 3 weeks, I've been talking about a lot of gloom and doom that Jesus was talking about. And if anybody here or anybody watching this video, if any of it's starting to kind of trouble your mind a little bit, maybe you're starting to think about it and worry about it a little bit, Paul said something in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1, verses 7 and 8. He gave you some advice. And to you who are troubled, rest with us when the Lord Jesus shall be revealed from heaven with his mighty angels in flaming fire, taking vengeance on them that know not God and that obey not the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. 3 words. Rest with us. If that stuff's bothering your mind, if you're worried about Jesus coming back in this sword cutting everybody's head off and their blood running bridle deep in the streets and all that stuff, come rest with us. Because we're going to be resting while all that's going on. If all that talk about death and destruction is starting to make you a little nervous or a little uncomfortable, maybe you squirm a little bit in your seat and start hunting the back door, just do like he said, come rest with us while Jesus is killing all them folks and taking vengeance on the people that don't know him and don't believe him. You don't have to go through all this. You can be sitting pretty on the winning side while the rest of the world is getting destroyed. If you don't already know how, I'll tell you how in just a minute, okay? Now, some people think that this next verses, 24, 40, and 41, is talking about a secret rapture, and I've heard preachers say, they quote them when they get to talking about the rapture and everything, because it sort of sounds like how it would happen, okay? Matthew 24, 40 and 41, then shall two be in the field. The one shall be taken and the other left. Two women shall be grinding at the mill, the one taken and the other left. Now that was in Matthew. That was Jesus talking about something that Paul said was a mystery and a secret hidden in God. So, is Matthew 24 verse 40 talking about a secret rapture? They're saying the rapture was not really a mystery. It wasn't really a hidden God. 1 Corinthians 15:51, Paul said, "Behold, I show you a mystery." That means it was hidden God. "We shall not all sleep, but we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. For this corruptible must put on incorruption, and this mortal must put on immortality." Now here's the problem. Old Luke, Dr. Luke, in chapter 17, verse 37, the disciples asked Jesus, that's where Luke told this detail that Matthew left out, okay? When he said, one will be taken and one will be left, and one will be taken and one will be left, the disciples asked him, where are they going to take them? Where are they taken? Here's the way Luke told it. Luke 17:34, "I tell you, in that night there shall be two men in one bed. The one shall be taken and the other shall be left. Two women shall be grinding together. The one shall be taken and the other left. Two men shall be in the field. The one shall be taken and the other left." And they answered, in verse 37, "And they answered and said unto him, Where, Lord? And he said unto them, Wheresoever the body is, thither will the eagles be gathered together." Jesus makes it perfectly clear that he's not talking about taking them to heaven with him, because he immediately says there's going to be a pile of dead bodies being eaten by a flock of buzzards. When he returns, the unbelievers are the ones that are going to be taken, and they'll be taken out and killed. Yeah, I got shocked when I figured that out too. But anyway, Jesus is talking about today that he separates the goats from the sheep, not the rapture of the church. Now, if you're still there when that happens, you might be working next to somebody who gets took. The reference to two being in the field and or at work when Jesus returns implies how quick it's going to be to separate the lost and the saved. Now, back to Noah. Noah knew the flood was coming. He didn't have no question about it. God told him he was going to destroy the world with water. He knew it was coming, but he didn't know when. He didn't have any idea when. Now, there's a lot of comparisons you can make out of this. Noah knew the flood was coming, and he was getting ready the way God told him to, but he didn't know what hour it was coming, but he did know it was going to be pretty quick. He especially knew it was going to be pretty quick when God put him in the ark and sealed the door. But they still had to wait another week. They stayed in that ark a week before it started raining. And I'm a married man, okay, and I know how a wife could possibly see that going on and start thinking, oh, Noah's lost his mind. What's this stuff, rain, that he's talking about? I mean, what he's talking about. Most Bible scholars they got half a brain say it never had rain before. Before the flood, the earth was watered with a mist that somehow or another came up. I don't know. I don't know whether it did or not. I wasn't there. but they say that it never had rained before. And the world, the people in the world around Noah that he was telling, it's going to rain, and it's going to rain, and it's going to rain. What's that? They didn't believe it was going to because it never had rained before. Today, most people don't believe the second coming is close either. They see these crazy folks, I guess they're crazy, standing out in the middle of Highway 27 holding a sign, or walking down Main Street, the end is near. And they think, them's just crazy people. That's what they think. They don't believe it's coming. And if you try to warn them, they start looking at you funny, you know? They'll laugh at you. They may not laugh to your face, but when you get turned around, don't turn back around real quick or you'll see them laughing at you and mocking you the same way they did Noah. They're too busy. They're too busy going about everyday life. Now, like I said, if you're there when that happens, that's what you'll run into. But now, if you get took in the rapture, everything's good. If you get left in the rapture, it's still not too late. You're going to have a hard time, but it's not too late. Now, when this stuff Jesus was talking about happens, he's talking about something entirely different. When that starts, when that fly swatter hits that counter, it's too late. It's too late. It's over. You're done. When Jesus comes back in judgment, it's too late to get saved. It's too late for the people of Noah's day when it started raining. I can just see them now beating on the side of that ark. Let me in, let me in. I didn't believe you, but I'm sorry. Too late. It's too late. If folks could somehow, I don't know, eat a magic mushroom or take some of that stuff, hallucinogenic stuff, and look up in the sky and see heaven and see Jesus on that white horse fixing to come back, they might believe then. Jesus don't want that kind of belief. He don't care nothing about that kind of belief. He wants faith. I don't understand all the logic behind it. I don't even pretend to. But I do know that faith is believing something that you can't see. Like old Doubting Thomas. When Jesus was resurrected and Thomas said, I'm not going to believe unless I can stick my hand in his side and see the holes in his hands. Well, Jesus showed him the hole in his side and the holes in his hands, and then told him, blessed are you, Thomas, because you see and believe, but even more blessed are them that don't see and believe. In Hebrews 11:1, Paul wrote it. Paul said, now faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. My grandma used to say that to me all the time. I wished I could hear her say it again. But anyway, when Jesus comes back and starts separating the goats from the sheep, that's when the wrath of God's going to fall. Noah and his family was in the ark. They was safe. They might got a little seasick, but they was safe. And the people around them was left for punishment. In Noah's day, they was drowned. When Jesus takes the Christians away, that's when the wrath of God's going to fall on the whole world. After the rapture, between that day and the day the church is took out, there's going to be all kinds of terrible wars and pestilences and famines. You think this coronavirus stuff, you think it's bad? It's going to get a whole lot worse. That's what's going to be waiting on folks that are not took in the rapture. The thing to do is to be ready to go when Jesus calls and escape all that horrible stuff that's going to happen in the tribulation. That's going to last 7 years, and the church ain't going to be here. Now then, life's going to go on. I understand there's going to be a tribulation. It's going to be 3.5 years of real bad tribulation. But life's going to go on till it's too late. And then instant destruction, that fly swatter going to hit. That generation is going to be just like the generation in Noah's time. He warned them folks for 120 years while he was building the ark. Now, I was telling about what the people are taking. They're took out and killed and the buzzards eat them. Now, what about the ones that are not taken? What about them folks that, you stay over here while I kill all these folks? What are they left for? Why are they left? Verse 39, there'd be two at the mill, one's taken and the other left. And what are they left for? They're left to go into the millennial kingdom. They become citizens of the millennial kingdom. They are the redeemed. The unbelievers will be swept away and the believers will be preserved. Now that separation process, that's described in a lot of detail in the judgment of the sheep and the goats in Matthew 25. He takes the goats on one side and so on and so forth, and the sheep on the other side. It's a little bit long. Y'all bear with me. I'm just going to read it to you. Okay? This is Matthew. This is Jesus talking in the book of Matthew 25:31. When the Son of Man shall come in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then shall he sit upon the throne of his glory, and before him shall be gathered all nations. And he shall separate them one from another, as a shepherd divideth his sheep from the goats. And he shall set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on his left. Then shall the king say unto them on his right hand, Come, ye blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was an hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. Then shall the righteous answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee and hungered and fed thee, or thirsty and gave thee drink? When saw we thee a stranger and took thee in, or naked and clothed thee? Or when saw we thee sick or in prison and came unto thee? And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily. By the way, that means, listen here, this is big stuff. Verily, I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, ye have done it unto me. Then shall he say also unto them on the left hand, Depart from me, ye cursed, into everlasting fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was an hungered, and ye gave me no meat. I was thirsty, and ye gave me no drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me not in. Naked, and ye clothed me not. Sick, and in prison, and ye visited me not. Then shall they answer him, saying, Lord, when saw we thee an hungered, or athirst, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not minister unto thee? Then shall he answer them, saying, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye did it not to one of the least of these, you did it not to me. And these shall go away into everlasting punishment, but the righteous into life eternal. Now then, them folks that's left when the rapture happens, that generation of people, they're going to be warned. They're just going to be like the people in Noah's day. They're going to have somebody warning them, and there's going to be a ton of them believe compared to all other ages. The 144,000 folks, those people that get sealed and so on and so forth and sent with, they're apostles is what they are. Imagine them being like the Apostle Paul. 144,000 of them. There's just one Apostle Paul. Going all over the earth preaching. And they was protected by God for 3.5 years. Well, as far as that goes, they're being warned right now. They've been warned ever since the New Testament was wrote. The generation that is alive when all this stuff happens, and it could be this generation, has been warned. They've been warned. But most of them are not going to wake up till that fly swatter comes down and they're hauled away and thrown into hell. So what does Jesus say? He gives us some advice on what to do. In Matthew 24, verse 42, he says, watch, therefore, for ye know not what hour your Lord doth come. Watch, therefore, be always on guard. You don't want to get surprised. Be prepared to meet God when he comes. You be ready. You take care of you. Just yourself. You take care of yourself. Because you can't take... No, come on, kids. Here comes Jesus. Let's go. You can't do that. It's just you. It's individual. You can't hang on to somebody else and take them with you. And every individual person is going to be judged. In the rapture, they're going to rise to meet Jesus or they're going to be left. In the second coming, they'll either be given the kingdom, the millennial kingdom, or they'll be destroyed. I say this as often as I possibly can because if there's anything in the Bible, most of the Bible makes me feel real good about the way things are going, even though they may not look good from a human perspective, but this actually scares me. It really does. I'm going to read it to you. You've heard it 100 times. Enter ye in at the strait gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat, because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Few. Most folks I know just assume, I'm going to heaven. Because they got the wrong idea about God. They've been led to believe that God is love, and that's true. But he's love, that means he's not really going to send nobody to hell. He ain't going to send nobody to an eternal burning hell. I've actually been to funerals. No offense. Been to funerals where preachers try to preach somebody into heaven. Somebody that's been a wicked hellion and reprobate all their life, and the preacher will stand up there and try to preach them into heaven, and while his friends and kin folks sit out there where the food is and everything, telling each other, he's in a better place now. No, he's not. Trouble is, he was a hellion and a reprobate who lived his whole life chasing pleasure instead of looking for God. And the plain and simple truth is, he's burning in hell right now. And they're probably going to join him if they ain't careful. Well, here's what you should do. First, make sure of your own salvation. Now, okay, I'm in church, I'm a Christian. I'll tell you what Paul said in Philippians 2:12. Therefore, my dear friends, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Now, there's two parts to that. First, you got to stay at it. That Greek word that King James translated work out means stay at it. Stay at it. Continually work to complete your salvation. Paul describes it in Philippians 3:13 as straining and pressing towards the mark of the high calling, towards the goal of becoming Christ-like. And the second part, you got to have a real respect for God. God's not in a little plastic box, or he's not a little statue that you glue to your dash in your car. You got to have a respect for God, and trembling is the way Paul described the healthy, it's a healthy fear and respect that we have. A fear of offending God, I guess is what you'd say, through disobedience, and the awe and respect we should have for His majesty and His holiness. Now, another meaning for that word trembling, it can also mean trembling from weakness when you realize how hard it is. But that weakness has got a higher purpose. When you realize how weak you are, that makes you totally dependent on God. Just the way it ought to be. Then, after you make sure of your own salvation, then you go around preaching to everybody you see. That's not what it says. Then you just let the light of God shine from your life. Most of the people around you are stumbling around in the dark, and they desperately need the light of the Holy Ghost shining out of you. So you need to just be a light bulb in a dark room. That's what you need to be. Matthew 5:16 says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." If you really are a child of God, you can't hide it. Your life is going to bear witness to His saving grace, and it's going to be like a light bulb in a dark room. Now, time is running out. It's running out fast. The people you love need to get saved now, before the trumpet blows. Nobody knows when a thief's going to break in their house, unless they got ADT or something. No, that's not. Sorry. Nobody knows when a thief's going to break in, and nobody knows when the Lord's coming back, but Jesus goes on in verse 43 to warn us Christians not to let our guard down and to just be ready. Matthew 24:43. "But know this, that if the good man of the house had known in what watch the thief would come, he would have watched and would not have suffered his house to be broken up." And in verse 44, "Don't think that he's delaying his coming and get lazy." A lot of church folks, you know what I mean by church folks? A lot of church folks are falling away today. If you don't believe me, just look around the room. And a lot of churches, folks are still sitting in the pews, but it's just out of habit. Or some of them are going to church for the music. They just want to be entertained. They want to see that preacher get up there and holler and wipe slobbers and blow snot bubbles and stuff. That's what they want to see. They want to be entertained. But Matthew 24, verse 44 says, "Therefore be ye also ready, for such an hour as ye think not, the Son of Man cometh." And Jesus was real big on parables, you know. In verses 43 through 51, he tells a story about two servants. And it shows how serious Christ's second coming is going to be. It gets serious when Jesus says stuff like, "Cut him asunder, and there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." When he says that, it's serious. Matthew 24, verse 45. "Who then is a faithful and wise servant, whom his Lord hath made ruler over his household, to give him meat in his due season? Blessed is that servant, whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Verily I say unto you, that he shall make him ruler over all his goods. But, and if that evil servant shall say in his heart, My Lord delayeth his coming, and shall begin to smite his fellow servants, and to eat and drink with the drunken, the Lord of that servant shall come in a day when he looketh not for him, and in an hour that he is not aware of, and shall cut him asunder, and appoint him his portion with the hypocrites. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Now that evil servant's the same one old Peter was talking about, who refused to take it serious when Christ says he's coming back over in 2 Peter 3 verse 3. This is 2 Peter 3 verse 3. Knowing this fact, excuse me, this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. Ain't nothing changing. I ain't never seen no Jesus. He don't believe it. Even though he's an unbeliever, these scoffers and these people walking after their own lusts, he don't believe it, but he's still accountable to Jesus for how he spent his time. Jesus teaches that every person on earth has been given 4 things from God that they will have to give an account for. One of them is their life, their abilities, their wealth, and their possessions. All that stuff is just held in trust. It's a gift from God that he trusts them with. And they're going to have to give an accounting of it on how they use them things. And it don't matter whether they're a Christian or a heathen. It don't make no difference. They still got to give an account for it. And then he goes on and tells them another story, just in case they're confused. The parable of the 10 virgins. Now, be prepared in case he takes longer than you think he should. Matthew 25, verse 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps and went forth to meet the bridegroom. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps, and the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, Not so, lest there not be enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came. And they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. Be ready when the trumpet blows. Don't let salvation wait till tomorrow. The devil will tell you, yeah, you need to get saved. Let's just hold off a day or two. It might be too late. The bridegroom in them stories is Jesus Christ, and that parable describes his return. In the Old Testament, over in Isaiah 54 and Hosea chapter 2, God pictures himself as the husband of Israel. And in the New Testament, Christ is pictured as the bridegroom of the church. In Ephesians 5:25, the church is described as the bride of Christ. And that whole thing is describing the way they done weddings back in the first century. The bridegroom with some of his buddies leaves his house and goes to the bride's house, where there's some ceremonies followed by a procession through the streets after nightfall to his home. Now, the 10 virgins are the bridesmaids that have been helping the bride, and they expect to meet the groom as he comes from the bride's house. Now, everybody in the procession was expected to carry his or her own lamp. Those without a lamp were considered party crashers. Kind of like going down to Franklin Strickland Funeral Home and eating lunch. Yeah, I know people that did that, by the way. Anyway, they got good food. Yeah. Anyway, they're considered party crashers. The lamp was a small oil tank with a wick. Y'all know what them things was, the oil lamp. And you had to keep occasionally refilling them to keep your light burning. Now, them dispensational, don't throw rocks at me, okay? Them dispensational scholars, they argue with each other over which return of Christ this parable is talking about. Is it his return to rapture the church, or his return to pour out God's wrath on sinners and set up his kingdom? Well, it don't really matter which return he's talking about, because the lessons in them parables apply to both of them. They apply to us looking for the rapture, and they apply to the folks in the tribulation when them 144,000 folks is running around there telling everybody be ready because Jesus is coming back and he's going to kill you if you don't, so on and so forth. It means keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus. Being ready means keeping our eyes on Jesus at all times while we're watching for him to come back. And it ain't popular. That's not popular preaching no more. I remember when I was a kid, I'd sit in the church and I'd be looking for the ceiling to bust open and Jesus to come back. I'm serious. That was a common sermon topic back in them days. But you don't hear that very much anymore. He's coming back. All them virgins was asleep when the call come. But it didn't really matter what we're doing when Jesus comes back. We might be working, we might be eating, we might be sleeping, we might be down the creek swimming. It doesn't matter. Being ready applies to his return for the rapture. We don't have time when it happens to make things right or to go get more oil whenever he shows up. Now here's how you get ready. The main thing you need to do to be ready for his return, it's real complicated. You got to get born again. That's it. That's how you get ready. You got to have saving faith in Jesus Christ, and it will show itself through every area of your life. Any of you ever raised a garden, you know that you put the seed in the ground, you don't go back the next day and go to picking green beans. That's Martha. She looks like she's doing okay. You need some help, honey? All right. You don't go back the next day and pick the green beans. Comes up, it's a tender plant. You've got to put bug stuff on it to keep the bugs from eating it. It's tender, and then gradually over time that thing will grow and it'll start to produce fruit. It'll bloom. And then when the time's right, it'll be covered in green beans. So, being ready, and you got to have saving faith in Jesus Christ, and you will start producing the fruit of the Spirit. You'll have a heartfelt desire for more holiness and less sin. It don't mean you're going to quit sinning. That's what it don't mean. But you're going to have a desire to quit sinning. And then, as you learn more, you'll start watching the signs of the times, watching for Jesus' return. Now the 5 wise virgins, they had the extra oil. They're the ones that is truly born again, and they was looking for the coming of Christ. They've got saving faith, and they've determined that whatever happens, when Jesus comes back, they're going to be looking for him. Now the 5 foolish virgins, they're more interested in the party that they're going to have than the bridegroom. Their hope is that some of that religion that them true believers had, some of that oil, would rub off on them and get them into the kingdom too. Now just being around people that believe in Jesus won't save you. When the virgins said, "Lord, Lord," and the bridegroom said, "I don't know you," matches the way Jesus is going to condemn them false believers over in Matthew 7. Matthew 7, verse 2. I'm sorry, 21. Not every one that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name? And in thy name cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works. And then I will profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. I probably shouldn't do this, but when I say that prophesied, that's preaching, by the way. There's a name I cannot keep myself from saying. If I bite my tongue, I can't stop from saying this fellow's name. Benny Hinn. Okay, is that enough? Y'all know what I'm talking about. He'll say, Lord, Lord, we've prophesied in thy name and cast out devil and healed folks and all that stuff. Jesus ain't in that. I hope that none of us have to try to find more oil when Jesus comes back. So what you need to do is take a little time now. Just take a little time and fill your lamp up now. Keep watching and waiting with hope and joy, because just when you think he ain't coming, that's when he's going to show up. Now that phrase, weeping and gnashing of teeth, he didn't just say that for an ornamental decoration at the end of that verse, weeping and gnashing of teeth. Here's what he is talking about. In the Roman times around the first century there, people that had slaves, if one of them acted up a little bit or they just didn't like the way they looked or something, they would lock them up in the dungeon. All these slave owners had a dungeon. Now, dungeons was like root cellars. They was dug underground, most of them. They were shut out from the light of the sun. They was damp and dark and unhealthy, and probably because the plumbing wasn't exactly right, they was probably filthy and stinky too. Now, slave owners built them dungeons to keep their slaves in line. I want you to imagine yourself here just for a minute. First, you've had the bad luck of becoming a slave, which everybody who is not saved is a slave to Satan. And then, somehow or another, you make your master mad. Imagine he takes you and locks you in a hole in the ground, shut out from the light of heaven, shut out from peace, joy, comfort, and hope. Because you're completely dependent on him to let you out. While you're there, you'll start weeping in hopeless grief. And you'll gnash your teeth because you're so mad at your master for locking you up. You be mad at God and against his justice. If you don't like the idea of being locked in a dark hole in the ground, miserable and mad, just remember, that's just a faint picture of what hell's going to be like. Come to Jesus while there's still time. Don't wait for that eastern sky to bust open and then you got to stand before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords and hear him say, "Depart from me, ye worker of iniquity, I never knew you." Jesus is going to judge every person that ever lived. He's going to judge unbelievers. They're going to get to face the white throne judgment. That's their last chance and their last stop before they get sent to hell for eternity at the lake of fire. Believers are also going to stand before Jesus, and that's when they're going to fully realize just how, I guess extravagant's the right word, how extravagant his grace is. I used to worry, still every now and then in a moment of weakness I still do, that all these people that I've done bad stuff to, yeah, I know, it's hard to believe that I ever done anything bad. But anyway, I used to worry that all that was going to be on display. All these people are going to be sitting around the judgment seat of Christ, and here I am standing here, and they're going to be watching on that big movie screen every little thing that I've ever done wrong. That's a wrong idea. The Bible don't say that. What Jesus will expose is your true nature to you. Every rebellious act, every wrong attitude, every cutting word you ever spoke is going to be shown to you. You're going to see just how sorry, trashy, low-down, backstabbing, bed-wetting, and no-count you really are. Okay? And here you are standing in front of Jesus, seeing yourself the way He sees you. I don't know about y'all, it doesn't make me cry. That's when Isaiah prophesied about that moment in your life. Isaiah in chapter 25, verse 8, he says, He will swallow up death in victory, and the Lord will wipe away the tears from our faces. Here we are standing in front of Jesus, like I said, seeing us the way He sees us, and just full of grief, because it's going to be so plain to us that we don't deserve it. We don't deserve His sacrifice. Don't deserve it. But our sorrow is only going to last for a moment. I'm getting goosebumps now, preacher. Then will come the overwhelming joy of being forgiven. Christ's judgment is not to give out punishment. It's to remind us that we are forgiven. We are finally able to realize the depth of His grace. Now, Christians don't need to hang their head in shame during that judgment. You don't even have to repent. The time for repenting is done past. It's too late. You don't have to repent. We'll be standing before the Lord, and we'll be clothed in His righteousness. We'll be forgiven of every single sin. And we will at last begin to comprehend how great the love of God is for us. Now, I know we're all church folks here, and I know nobody here knows who Janis Joplin is, right? Okay, she used to be a big-time singer back in 1971, and she had a song that tells you unsaved folks what you need to do right now. The name of the song was Get It While You Can. You need to get saved today. And then you can come rest with us while God's pouring His wrath out on the rest of the world. Thank you.